Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be talking about the Washington football team defense and what to expect from them in 2021. Before we get started though, please drop a quick like and a sub on today's video. That would really help my channel grow. And with that said, let's dive right into it, and I hope you enjoy. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Washington football team defense and what to expect from them next season. So before we get started for a sec, let's talk about what they did in 2020. This was an elite NFL defense because of their ability to get pressure on the quarterback and pick up turnovers. If you look at their leaders on defense, you see Jon Bostic with tackles with 118 total tackles, and you see Kendall Fuller with 4 interceptions on the year. So two guys that were really big difference makers for them. But now though, let's talk about their defensive stats as a whole, right? Those are the numbers we want to talk about. When we talk about their defensive stats as a whole, look at them at number 4. Oh wow. Okay, let's try and not, get pop-ups here. So at number 4, they were the 4th best defense statistically in the NFL last year based off of points allowed. So with that said, I mean, they were really good at shutting down opposing offenses. That's what they did better than almost any other team in the NFL. And then if we look at their passing defense, right, that was something that they were really good throughout the year. For a large part of the year, they were the number 1 rated passing defense in the NFL. Ended up finishing as the number 2 rated pass defense in the NFL. Remember that Rams defense was also really good too. But Washington, with guys like Kendall Fuller back there, as well as they did have, who am I forgetting? Ronald Darby. They had Ronald Darby last year too. Those guys really helped them a lot last year. Although Ronald Darby is no longer with the team, we're going to talk about that as we talk about this video. That's something to watch out for. But this is still going to be a very good secondary next season. Now though, let's look at the pass defense. Let's look at their rush defense for them. What am I saying? 13th in rush defense. That was the one weakness for the team, if we want to call it a weakness. They're still in the top half of the league in rush defense. Jonathan Allen, pretty good run defender. Daron Payne, really good run defender. He's much more that run defender guy in the front 4 of that defense. But I mean, they're so athletic up front, and they have pretty solid linebackers. They don't have elite linebackers, but they did improve the linebacking position this offseason by getting Jamin Davis in that first round of the 2021 NFL draft. I keep on saying 2020 in some of these videos, but in 2021, yeah, they improved the linebacking position. It's definitely something that they needed to do, as that's probably the main weakness of their defense, to be honest, the linebacking position. But good run defense, great pass defense, and really good overall defense last year, and we'll talk about what to expect from them next season. So now here, let's just dive into the depth chart for a second. You look at Chase Young, you look at Jonathan Allen, you look at Daron Payne, Montez Sweat, Ioannidis on that defense, and you get scared. Let's start with Chase Young, though. And Chase Young not only won Rookie of the Year last year, but honestly, the Washington football team had 2 Rookie of the Year candidates on this team. Obviously Chase Young, Kamren Curl was another guy too, but 7.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. You saw the 32 solo tackles and 44 total tackles, but this guy was electric. He really was. At the end of the day, this is a guy that showed off his athleticism, his speed, his pass rushing ability, and his finesse on route to just a fantastic season overall. And I think that the sky's the limit for this guy. 7.5 sacks, I think, is a baseline for Chase Young. I really do believe that this is a 10-sack player here, and he's going to be the heart and soul of this Washington football team moving forward. Also, this Washington football team has so many good pass rushers. Their team is built off their front 4, and Chase Young is an elite part of that front 4. He's a dynamic part of that front 4, and he's a massive part of this team. He's a guy that's really going to help this Washington football team defense as they continue to try and improve in the future. But overall, really good season from Chase Young last year, but I think that him and what he's able to bring to the table is 10 sacks. I think he can get 10 sacks next year, especially with another year of Montez Sweat, another year of Ioannidis, Daron Payne, and Jonathan Allen, although they don't have Ryan Kerrigan anymore, which I guess, to be honest, I don't think it's a massive loss for them just because Ryan Kerrigan hasn't been as good as he's been previous years just because he's getting up there in age. Didn't really fit the system either. There were just more guys in front of him that could be more productive, like Montez Sweat and Chase Young. So I don't really think that losing Kerrigan is going to be all that big for this Washington defense. Losing, I think, a guy like Ronald Darby might be bigger, but they did replace him with William Jackson. So overall, I really like the way that this Washington football team defense has readjusted, after losing some guys and adding some guys. But let's also talk about Montez Sweat for a second. Montez Sweat really had a fantastic year last year. Honestly, kind of under the radar. He didn't really get talked about that much in the national media, in my opinion. But 9 sacks, tied for 14th in the NFL in that regard, 2 forced fumbles and an interception, 28 solo tackles. This guy once again showing off his athletic abilities. This Washington football team defense is so athletic. That's what they are, and especially up front where they're able to get to the quarterback with their size, their quickness, their speed, and their athleticism. Their athleticism is what sets them apart from other teams in the NFL. They're long, they're lanky, they're physical, and they're dynamic at getting to opposing backfields and just being disruptive. And Montez Sweat was massive for them last year in that regard. But, let's just talk about the rest of these guys up front, too. I mean, Jonathan Allen, really good pass rusher, too, from the interior of that defense. Former Alabama guy, picked up in the first round. All these guys are former first-round picks. Daron Payne, another guy who is really influential for them, more as a run defender, though. He's probably their best run stopper. He's a big defensive tackle, really able to stop the run. And then Matt Ioannidis, a guy who was injured a little bit last year, but he's a guy who can get to the quarterback from the interior of the defensive line, too. Watch for him to play more third down looks. For this Washington team, but overall, this front four is among the best in the NFL. I mean, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, honestly, I would not be surprised if they combine for 18 plus sacks next year. Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, one of the better defensive tackle combos in the league, just because of what they bring. Allen is much more of a guy who can get to the quarterback. Payne is much more of a guy who can stop the run. They both can do both, and they really complement well among this. They really complement each other really well. I can't speak English, I guess. Linebackers wise, that's probably the problem with this. It's probably the problem with this defense. I mean, Jon Bostic was good last year for them, 119 tackles. Sure, there were some questions with actually how he played, but he did rack up the stats. I don't love him as a middle linebacker, but he's okay. Cole Holcomb had a nice year last year. Definitely on the rise as a player. He's a guy that's definitely getting up there. Just because he's a little bit younger. He's been in Washington for a few years at this point. A lot of talk of him last year taking that next step, and I thought he actually did play pretty well. Jamin Davis, though, I really enjoy them going out and getting Jamin Davis. They did end up losing Kevin Pierre-Louis last offseason. This offseason, one of their better pass stopping linebackers, and Jamin Davis can do a little bit of everything. He's lanky, he's got the size and the speed to really stay with everyone. I think that he really adds some depth and some playmaking talent to this Washington football team defense. So at the end of the day, I like that Jamin Davis pick. But to be honest, the linebackers of this Washington football team defense, I think they can make the tackles, they can make the stops. It's really they don't have that high-end talent on that defense. We haven't really seen Jamin Davis play, I guess, but I don't think they really have any high-end talent on that defense. But they've got a ton of solid players in the linebacking core in that regard. But it's really the front four for me, and then the back end with Kendall Fuller, William Jackson. That's going to be scary to try and play up against for Washington. Remember, they were the number 2 pass defense last year, and that was a big part of Kendall Fuller and Ronald Darby. And although Ronald Darby is gone, William Jackson replaces him, and to be honest, I think William Jackson is better than Ronald Darby. Although Ronald Darby is much better as an interception guy, William Jackson, who has struggled with his hands at times in his career, is much more, in my opinion, a lockdown corner. He's probably a top 20 corner in the NFL. And Washington fans, I've said this all offseason, and I said this earlier in the offseason, that I think that Washington, their free agency and getting Ryan Fitzpatrick, getting Curtis Samuel, and getting William Jackson, and even Adam Humphries has won them, the NFC East. And I think that, this defense is going to be fantastic. Fuller was absolutely phenomenal for them last year with all the interceptions, and I can show you those stats. I think he had 4 interceptions. I don't know how many pass breakups he had. He had 11 pass deflections, tied for 24th in the NFL, 7th in the NFL in interceptions, and then 38 solo tackles, 50 total tackles. He was an absolute leader and really solid player for this Washington team in his, I believe, first year back in Washington after being in Kansas City over the past few seasons. But him, and then obviously now William Jackson coming from Cincinnati, he's a guy who's a solid man coverage corner, and that's what Washington wants to play. They want to play man coverage, and Fuller and William Jackson allow them to do that to a high level. Then in the back part of the secondary, Landon Collins hasn't played up to the standard that big contract would make you think he'd play up to, but he's still flying around there. And although he's no longer as good as he was with the Giants, I still think that he's a guy that can stop the run. He's an overall defensive weapon. He lines up in different areas. He is all over the run defense, all over the pass defense. But I want to talk about Kamren Curl too. And Kamren Curl really kind of stepped onto the scene last year, kind of almost coming out of nowhere in a way. And as a rookie, really performed to a high level. That's as simple as it was. He was absolutely dominant. Being picked up in the 7th round. When you take a 7th rounder, you don't really think that they're going to perform to a high level. But 4 pass deflections, 3 interceptions, 63 solo tackles, and 88 total tackles. that he was really good. Also had 2 sacks. He was a guy that flew around that Washington football team defense, and he's a playmaker at the end of the day. He's a playmaker. And I think that playmaking ability that he possesses allows some extra punch in the back end of that defense. So overall, what I love about this defense is they have talent everywhere, and they're really good. They're also coached by Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, so they're always going to be solid. I thought Jack Del Rio did a really good job last year getting these guys ready and switching from a 3-4 base defense to a 4-3 base defense to better fit the guys on this team. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, I think are going to combine for 18-plus sacks next year. Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, really good run defenders and good guys that can get to the quarterback. Payne, the run defender. Allen, more the guy who can get after the passer. And Ioannidis, too. Don't forget about him. He's a guy who can rack up sacks, too. For me, it's how well can the linebackers play. If the linebackers can play really well, this is a top 5 defense in the league. If they don't play so well, it's probably a top 10 defense in the league. But last year, it was definitely up there. The only thing for me is it's really hard to maintain defensive success year in and year out in the league. But nonetheless, this is going to be a definite surefire top 10 defense if everyone's able to stay healthy. Obviously, that's always a concern with the NFL. Can players stay healthy? But William Jackson, Kendall Fuller, I think are going to be a great duo in the secondary. And I think with William Jackson being better than Ronald Darby, that's really going to help that secondary out. It's really just, once again, how good are the improvements at linebacker? Losing Kevin Pierre-Louis, that does hurt a little bit, as he was one of the better pass guys, pass protection guys on the defense. That doesn't make sense, but that's fine. Jamin Davis, I think that'll be an interesting thing to see. How does he pan out? But overall, this defense is going to be elite next season. It's really that simple. They're coached well. They've got great players, great talent, and just look at that front four. It's the best in the league. And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my analysis? Why or why not? Leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you're new around here, please drop a like and a sub on today's video. I'd really appreciate that. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.